right, here we are, Tactical Tuesday. Michelle, you're in the first box.
Oh, okay, cool. I probably have the least to report, so that's perfect. I don't know if I have anything to report since last Friday. Well, I must do. I did some style stuff.
Okay. Did you do any work with our with the parser, the
Jamie?
docket numbers?
Yeah, Jamie with the docket numbers.
Yeah, I assumed he'd report. I guess he's not here right now. Yes, we kind of discussed a bit about like Python syntax and programming and how that works. He just needed to brush up on some stuff that I think he basically knew. But so he now has the basic idea of what like the major function is going to be that's going to call the rest of the functions, and we discussed the conclusions we'd come to in Monday deep dive about what's going to be returned, though we need a follow-up discussion about that to solidify some stuff from yesterday that we kind of changed a couple things.
And is there I know do you know if they disappear right on the 30th, or when does their new job start?
Oh, I don't know. No,
I know they're not around for long, so we might want to just triage.
Yeah, it's very MVP, very much
that's
like
perfect.
Figure out what we return and then return that stuff.
That's perfect. I mean, it was this nice little project. It was just sitting there for someone to work on, so it's great that they were able to come in and just do a little something with it.
By the way, Aubrey expressed interest in this yesterday in my class. So if it's something Jamie doesn't have time to finish, then maybe there's a way to pass it on to her.
There's definitely a way to pass it on, because Jamie will be done when they start their new job, which is clearly going to be before the end of the semester. So
that is true, but we just whatever is left has
the question is if there's enough.
Project. That's the thing I'm not sure about, but I don't want to
add more.
It's not part of the final project. I guess that's true. You're
right. I think there will be more.
Think of more to add.
I mean, at the very least, they'll be hooking it up to a DocAssembly interview, right? Like doing that integration and making it a DocAssembly module. But I think there'll be like a lot to do to get it to handle anything other than a like very straightforward case, and to make sure that it doesn't like mismatch for cases that
might not be much more one can do for non-straightforward cases. But
well, I just mean like all the variations that there are even within a single case. Like they put together a list of variations, and even within a single case there were huge variations in how the case thing was listed. So it may need some work anyway, even to get like that. We have the ideal case where like it's the every form has it the same.
Right.
So there may be some work we can do. All
right, cool.
That does make me wonder though. Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but
this is fine, because I was going to ask you to talk, so just keep going.
What were the uses we were thinking of other than Matt Brooks's use for consumer cases? Are there more like use cases that are written up somewhere? Some user stories?
There is a use case in appeals for validating that it's a proper lower court usage. Like if it comes up through one path, then certain options are available, but if it comes up through another path, those options aren't available.
Okay. So validation is probably an easier problem to solve too than like reconstructing data from the existing document.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know if you can see us. We were nodding our heads.
I can see. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just making a cup of tea. I figured I wouldn't make everyone dizzy.
Oh, no.
No worries. Yeah, and there's validation function there's just a straight up validation function for an expected format. So I think it needs some unit testing, and that might be something Aubrey could help with as well. She is good at thinking carefully about behavior. So, or has been in the past. So yeah.
Cool.
That's-
Quentin, you can just keep on the roll there.
So Bryce and I have just been working on finishing up the test. Now I'm starting to wonder if my 20 hours was right, even for the two of us together. It might be more, but we're keeping plugging along. I'm trying to kind of dive into the filing interview and see what's going there. And I'm starting with things that are more just refinement for now. And I'm going to try to help with the real, more substantive functionality as soon as I am ready to do that. But I do still think that we are on track to be able to submit for filing this month. I'm not worried about that.
I was waiting to see what was at the end of that sentence. This month. Cool. Well, I just got the access today, and the email did come over from Tyler with the credentials. So I at some point today, might not be until after the kids go to bed, but at some point today, I'll give things a look and at least give my high level thoughts. Is there anything particularly you want me to be on the lookout for? Just sort of anything, I imagine.
So, like, I think we mentioned this before, but we're not necessarily looking for like user or like user, not, I don't want to say like we're actively user unfriendly, but more of just like
only credentialing. That's all we're looking for.
Yeah, we're looking for like weird test case stuff, like the like standard joke about QA going into a bar and ordering like -5 beers, a lizard, and stuff like that. Like just as weird as we can think, because there's a handful of stuff that we need to like there's but also like weird in case and like sort of knowledge specific in terms of like Quentin's pointed out a few things of like which we had to like think deeply about, or at least in terms of like there wasn't a clear housing case for one of the courts, and we were like, oh, eventually we found it under, there's like one between damages between 10,000 and 50,000, but there's not one for like eviction under 10,000. And so that's like, we might just be have to be okay with that, but even just being able to think and make sure that we're allowing the right things. And if something just seems off and like, oh, you can't file this type of case in this court, it could just be a configuration.
General smell test then.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is your standard practice, but I try and remember to start recording when I start testing. So then I can always trace back how it caused the behavior. And that might also make a good basis for creating tests for the thing itself. Automated tests.
Yeah. Recording's a good idea.
So Bryce has some really good integration tests on the proxy server directly.
Awesome.
So something for us to think about is what will be our fallback. If like, hey, this thing doesn't work, but it does work on our real product, which is the proxy server. I wonder if they'll let us fall back to that and say, hey, here's how to do this call the right way. I doubt it, but
yeah.
But it does make it seem kind of silly to write tests for the interface when that's not our real product.
Yeah, I think
we need to make sure it works when they're testing.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, we do have at least, which like it's, there might be a small bit of finagling, but we do have like the ability to like let them test it in author mode, which like if you send something to the proxy server and there's some wrong value somewhere, it'll send back to DocAssembly like saying that, hey, this is either a missing value or it's like a wrong value. And if it's wrong, it should say why it's wrong. And it'll give you the chance to like just type in text to redefine that Python variable, as long as it's like a simple one and not like some weird nested object that was wrong. And it might need a bit of finagling to be usable, but as usable as more than just like very detailed debug info. But like that's what I had been anticipating on. If they have weird cases, like they change something deep in the court, or like in the court config that isn't really manageable to change on like the DocAssembly side, that we send back a hey, this will need to change.
my general feeling is that I don't want to say they, looking at that wonderful red light. I think we're going to be okay.
That's fair. Yeah.
Other anything else from you, Quinn? And take that as no. Bryce, anything you want to add?
Well, or that if you don't know that you're muted, Quentin, you are muted.
Oh, that's I think he would have.
Yep, I was just carrying my phone. Back to my screen.
Anything else to add, Quinn?
Nope.
Cool. Just like general practice, I don't have like much more broader announcements than sort of Quinn had, and other than where like I'm sort of trying to do a lot of the proxy server stuff, which I can just do a bit faster and like I generally like will be able to see like, oh, this is the error, I know exactly where it is and can change it really quick. And so I'm trying to focus on that to leave Quentin available to make wonderful DocAssembly interviews. We needed some extra, like I submitted some stuff to Tyler for like the questions we had to Tyler, and we need some extra permissions to do all the testing that we need to do. And I got back the answers to their questions and sent them to Quentin, and their answers, they're not really great answers, but they're answers. And then for some reason, they don't think that our users exist on the server, which is extremely confusing. And I was like, here, I have the user IDs and everything. Is this the wrong server? And I'm waiting for a response on that. But yeah, otherwise it's going. I have gone through and triaged all of the like small to-dos that were just like hanging around in code and such. So those are all as GitHub issues and like post MVP or post certification, pre-certification tags and everything. So yeah, I just got a list of things to do.
Cool. It's funny. I now feel like I want to hand off to Quentin again, because now he's behind you in the boxes because he signed on to a different device. But I think that probably takes care of us. I'm trying to think if there's anything strategic to share. I guess there is this. Quentin and I had a little bit of a conversation yesterday about our next set of funding beyond Pew that we're seeking. This was a conversation, Michelle, you might remember a little bit of this in between time in a couple of meetings a while ago. And there's just sort of this general question of, I don't know what the next logical steps are for the project, and I don't know if I'm just trying to fill time, or if there's a conversation to be had here. I guess the context is we're trying to close this other bit of funding. The Pew funding is we're just waiting for papers to move back and forth and lawyers to say okay for the second grant. But there's this other funder who's interested in doing stuff, and so there's this question of, what does that look like? But it's not like burning. Like I think actually.
I mean, I can see lots of different directions. Like,
well, so
it
there
depends if it's mass access or if it's
there are some constraints. So the constraints are housing, probably within Massachusetts, with implications for eventually being something that's replicable. So it's really about housing. Quentin, do you have a better framing that?
For like kind of what we were thinking of the direction?
Yeah.
Well, we did this like process in Massachusetts that there was a national grant, the Justice for All, which had us looking at the housing problem through like a housing stability lens. I thought it was pretty influential. So just try to kind of like map, here's what are people's housing needs? What are things that are related to people being able to stay housed? And that was our framework where we were starting. And then we're seeing like, where are the gaps in that from a digital delivery of services need? And there are a lot of things that there's some product out there that does it, or that it would just be not feasible because it's like a huge data collection and maintenance problem. And so that's kind of where we started, I think, like looking at what are things that are existing needs in Massachusetts that are appropriate for us to do and that are not done by somebody else. And then looking for the ones that are highest impact, and then also the ones that are most measurable. So
and then you also put out a feeler to the folks in the housing community, the housing law community. I saw a couple of things. I don't know if you got some replies offline. Maybe those are worth talking about for that ideas people had.
Yeah, just the one that was to everybody. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of response, but I think it was like a big open-ended question. So I'm not totally surprised there. And just wanted to make sure people had a chance to respond if they had burning thoughts. But yeah, ideally it'd be something that people really are excited to work on. So then we have access to people who care about the problem and can be experts on it too. But maybe I could definitely share that continuum chart. It's probably like too much information, but maybe if it's something people can just look at their leisure, they might have ideas about it. Maybe check with the Teams channel, maybe.
Yeah. For some reason, when you said that, I feel like, oh, what we need to do is we just need to like have a banquet. And, this is non-pandemic thinking here, but it's like, just get everyone in a room and sitting around and leisurely talking. And
yeah, that was where like, I think you're right. It's like a card sorting problem or brainstorming issue, but yeah. But then it's hard to, that could be, honestly, that could be a thing to do still. Do like on digital focus group. And rather than trying to get people to look at it and spend time on it over email asynchronously. Yeah,
I think it might, if we want to really mind that, we might want to try to have some time box time where we get people together and focused, as opposed to it may not be what we need to do though, because
it may not need it, right? If we feel like we have a good project within what we already have, that might not be necessary, but still.
Might not be necessary for this, right? Yeah. There is sort of the question of, beyond this set of funders, where might things go?
Yeah. Oh, and then the other question is like, who should be there? Like I just reached out to experts, but maybe ultimately we want to talk with people who are experiencing housing needs and do more of like a user-centered design approach to things. But
I think also, in that, just to put it out there, might be an approach that is trauma informed, which you probably are all aware of, but just to make sure it's said. Like when you do user research with people who are, might experience re-traumatization through the user research process.
This general question of involving users in the design process keeps coming up, and we want to be able to do it, and we do what we can with the users that are the experts, because those are always part of our users, the advocates and the experts. But it would be nice if we could think about a more formal way for us to involve end users.
So I have a suggestion that I've been mulling around that I haven't really acted on it yet because of Tyler stuff. So Emerson specifically has a kind of media design program. I know of it because my girlfriend went through it, and it's like they have research, but they also specifically have a master's program that is sort of a year-long thing that we would work directly with them, and it's less of a design, we get it's less of a traditional design thing, and it's more of they go and do a lot of like user testing and a lot of like road mapping in terms of what like working, and they do a lot of like road mapping and working with all of the involved parties, which is exactly what would be like. They'd be working with like us and probably advocates, and then also would try and find some like people who are trying to, or are going through like this process of eviction or stuff like that. Maybe not the exact process, but people who have experience, like users who have experience with that. And I've meaning to reach out. Usually I think I think we've probably like missed this like last year's cycle, because they usually do like they'll choose partners to work with and like choose students to work with them around this time, and the students will like choose the project, be on the projects by like November, and then they do like a thesis project around it. But yeah, and I've just been debating about it. I've been debating reaching out to one of their professors and at least just trying to ask like, hey, like we have a general, like maybe not necessarily like this specific housing issue, but just in general, like this is our project. We've been like filling out a lot, but one of the things that we have been sort of lacking is like user engagement and getting those involved parties like in on the design process. I don't know if that makes sense to.
Yeah, that.
Maybe at
I
least,
mean, that's
like have some conversations about. I don't know if pursuing.
We always seem to get to this point where we like think about that as an idea, and then we're so busy with the stuff that we're doing that it's hard to engage. So maybe what we need to do is like actually recognize that or like self-existing constraint on that, and say like what we want to do is we want to think about the next thing. So not the next thing, but the next thing, and how we could actually engage stuff from the beginning, because we already have all these things that there's sort of these external constraints from funders and such, and there's sort of expectations about what will be built. But maybe if we're thinking like blue sky, with the next for the next thing, how do we want to engage and start things?
I do have a couple mostly concerns about like as far as a school and students like leading a process. We talked to like Harvard about a similar thing, though they say, you know, they'll go off and do like the project, not just their user research, but the whole project. And our concern there was they really wanted to do it all themselves. And we already had a lot of like expert knowledge about, you know, and had worked with our partners who we didn't want to make them repeat everything. And then we did not think they would have the perspective to be able to have trauma-informed user research and trauma-informed conversations. We're working in like record expungement, which I don't know, maybe more sensitive, maybe less sensitive, but like just, you know, I just as students who don't have lived experience and don't want to collaborate on the work so that, you know, like we would do it with them. There was just a lot of concern in the group about their ability to do that, as well as like these are long-term relationships. So to put people who are just going to be gone after the semester, after the year. So I'm just putting all those out there, and they may not apply here, but you know, like whether it's appropriate or not, that particular program, like that particular kind of program.
Well, I think that's well taken, because it's taking that sort of feedback into account, which sort of, if we're talking about the next thing, which we don't even know what it is yet, right? It's just, you know, the next thing. Then we can use that to say, well, maybe that means if the only option we have available to us is something like that, then the choice of topic area means, you know, that would inform the choice of topic area.
I will say, I do think, at least I remember you talking about this Harvard project a bit, and I know this project is, or at least the way the Emerson organizes its master thesis is a bit more, it's one of those things of, I don't think we should go in expecting to have like a specific work product made, or like a specific, like, we want you to we want these exact answers for these exact questions, because it is a lot of like, that's the point of the process on the student side, is to sort of discover
exploration.
And so I agree, like, and so I agree, like, that's a bit loose. but I do think that they do work closely with the partners. Like all the students have like at least like bi-monthly or monthly meetings where like we'll sort of guide them and help like give them connections and stuff to people. And they do, I don't know the exact trauma-informed stuff they have, but I do know that they'll work on like sensitive, like sort of sensitive topics, and they do train the like students to interview correctly and to sort of like empathize and stuff. Like example, I know one of the projects they did last year was working with the city of Boston's it's not substance abuse, that's the wrong word, but that's the one that's coming to mind. It's like their substance disorder, like
Substance use
department.
disorder.
Yeah, but it's like the city department of Boston, and they were specifically like interviewing kids to try and like well, like they're like, I think part of the process was figuring out what to do, but they ended up on in order to stop like substance abuse for like and like minors, the best thing to do was to like find alternatives and just like hobbies and groups and stuff like that. And so they like ended up making like a resource map for kids. And so a lot of their research was like interviewing children and working and like going to schools and such. And they did that a lot. Like, I think they definitely had a lot of help from the Department of Boston, who like, that's their job. And so they have a lot of trauma-informed experience with that. And so I don't know if we would like, if we were expected to give that trauma or like that sort of like training to them, I don't know how well that would work, but I do at least think that they think a lot about these questions too.
Michelle, just for context, was the group you were talking with, was that the student group? Was that the sort of club?
It is the
same
club.
Yeah. Is it, Quentin, what do you remember them? It was the same as we were.
It sounds like
I think they were.
Was it undergrad?
I think we talked at the time, and they were. I totally forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a very different. But these are all valid things to think about.
Yeah,
right,
because it's not part of a course in that situation.
But that's good to know. That they have more like support and more guidance at Brandeis, right?
Emerson.
But there's a big difference there between, like a student-run club in an undergrad institution as opposed to a master's program part of coursework.
That's a really good point.
But these are all things to think about.
I feel like these are good relationships to build, but it is as we saw trying to work with the same student group, it sometimes takes a lot of time, and nothing works out. So. If we go in with that mindset, like, hey, we're building a relationship, maybe we'll get something, maybe we won't.
And it's just to step back, we're on the other end of this relationship too, as the lab. So we've played this role. The last year and a half, we've been all COVID all the time, but we've also sort of served this role before as well. Of the school who's trying to provide coursework to do so. So I understand that. Well, we were after 1 o'clock. I want to be very mindful of people's time. I think last week worked out well. It sounds like there's a lot of work on people's plate. No one else has popped in. I know sometimes people pop in a little late, but I think we should repeat last week's. Last week was for Casual Friday. So the question is for Teaching Tuesday, I think we can do the same thing. I like having people have that time. So this month is just very focused. I have a dentist appointment I got to get to, but my first dentist appointment since the commencement of the pandemic, so it'll be interesting.
Oh, really? Yeah. They're pretty careful. I didn't feel nervous at all. But good luck.
Well, I'm more curious about what they'll find than about how they'll. I think it'll be fine. I might have very good dental hygiene and lock and enamel or whatever. Okay.
We're recording
well, then,
still. I'm just saying.
Yeah. That's okay. The world can know about my dental hygiene.
Okay. All right.
Good dental hygiene is important.
It is.
All right. So for those of you watching the video, when you're looking for the Teaching Tuesday of the same date and don't see it, you'll now know.